Well, it took about 50 years, but we're finally here. Welcome to our playthrough of Part 1 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake for the PS4.
Part 1.
Yeah, I
Yes.
said that.
He said.
5
Part one,
years.
part
I
one.
want to install the
No,
DLC.
part
There you
1
go,
of
now we
part
can
1.
start.
Allow me. 5 years ago, 5 members of SCWRM took part in a playthrough of Final Fantasy VII, the original game. Also,
It was cringe, but educative at least.
I guess so the
And
so
hey, the
not-
prelude's
yet,
on the main screen.
yet another 5-year anniversary of an old playthrough.
and let me tell you guys.
Well, to be honest, Pedro, we're publishing this before Time and Eternity, so foreshadowing, I suppose.
Let me tell you guys, though, that playthrough of ours was so wonderfully timed because during that year, not only was Cloud added into flipping Smash Brothers for the first time ever, but at E3 2015 for Sony, the VII Remake was announced, literally in the middle of our commentary.
Keep in mind
so
that it
much
was
stuff.
mostly accidental, but I will explain more during the actual gameplay section because this first part covered for the most part the demo bit we already covered, so I will take advantage instead of the moments we already retarded. But the beginning is not one of them. There is a bit more stuff to show.
And yeah, it does. Like the original, it has the Cloud sword stuck in the stone
Jammed
thing from
Master
the other
Sword.
game.
Now,
I'm gonna get it out.
So the intro that I mentioned in the demo that we didn't get, it starts with the airs around Midgar. You shall not pass.
Square Enix presents Assassin's Creed Remake.
Pretty
Square
much.
Enix presents
Well,
Lord
remember,
of the
Dwibs, Square
Rings.
Enix seems to have a boner with crossovering with Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed, so...
There
Director
he
concept
is, the
design.
Kingdom Hearts guy himself, Tetsuya Nomura.
Totally doing
wonderful,
this out of his free
wonderful.
will.
Wonderful.
He's definitely not locked in the Square dungeon.
There's
Yes.
the other director who I'm not too familiar
Naoki
with.
Yamaguchi.
And oh my god, it's the devil! Run!
Why did it need to be third building? Seriously.
Well, to be fair,
He's
he
the director.
He's helping Nomura direct the
I
cutscene.
think Nojima deserved a bit better credit than him.
I mean,
Same.
okay, to
And
give
Ki- and
Tori...
Kitase while we're at it.
Okay,
I mean,
to
Nomura
give...
directed the original
Yeah.
game.
The interesting thing is that most of the music is Masashi Yamazu. Uematsu did the song that we heard in one of the trailers, but I can imagine it was at least like a consultant at the very least, because Amazu, aside from one or two themes that I heard, because I'm playing the game so far, Amazu seems a bit out of his comfort zone when remixing these particular tracks.
Okay, let me set the stage for what things were like 5 years ago. Back then, I really did not know that much about Final Fantasy.
Ooh.
I literally did not know. My two introductions to it were Pedro's playthrough of Final Fantasy XIII and Tears' playthrough of Final Fantasy VII. I mean, I knew stuff about them, but I had never actually seen 7 full and
And
throughout.
that's where we reprise.
And now we're gonna fade into the intro from the demo.
Although I will admit, I'm actually going to admit this, I did know about Crisis Core before properly playing 7.
Well, it was marketed well, Jova. It was very revolutionary at the time because it was the moment where Square was showcasing that even on something like the PSP, they could produce something that good looking, because Crisis Core was revolutionary for the time. It was nothing like any games on the PSP were seeing. Most of them were like bugged PS2 ports, not really great looking, but Crisis Core was damn impressive, and they kept continuing that with the Dissidia games, for example.
Basically, to put things into perspective, I knew about the major story beats of 7, but I didn't really know how truly powerful 7 was.
Is that the
until
X-Men?
Tio showed
Before
me.
they
It's the guy who sings the theme song too.
So it's
I thought they
Eggman.
misspelled it and it was like, oh, theme song by you.
No, I think it's a specific J-pop band, I think, also produced by Yoshiro Kitase. But keep in mind, like I said, it was mostly coincidental the time they released. At the time, I was trying to experiment how to record with an emulator, and Final Fantasy was an obvious choice because I kept mentioning how super nostalgic I am with the game, even if in the time I became more, a customary understanding that it did age. In a way, this remake is possibly the best thing that could happen for it, because it gives a chance to refine the story and ironing out all the kinks that it may have, in order to polish the product.
To this
Like, for
day,
example,
to this day, as a result of Tios' playthrough and me finally getting to play it proper myself, Final Fantasy VII is without a doubt my favorite Final Fantasy game. I know that may sound boring, but it just is that effective for me. Like, think about it like
Okay,
this.
now,
I had two introductions. I had what is arguably the best to what is arguably the worst, since the other game I got introduced to the series with was Final Fantasy XIII. Thank you for that, Pedro.
Okay, I should explain. For the most part, what you're going to see in the demo is exactly pretty
There
much
is
like-
one
sorry,
scene-
Sorry, I thought.
there is
What
one scene
you're
that the
gonna see in
demo
this part is
doesn't.
pretty much like the demo.
There is one
Okay.
scene that the demo doesn't show, but I know at least and the others to point out when it happens.
Now, is
Although I do a few things differently gameplay-wise, though. I can
Oh,
assure you of that.
one thing that I noticed, I don't know if you guys also noticed, compared to the demo, the sound effect when you use a potion is different for some reason.
guess they must have gotten feedback about that.
The first one,
Yeah,
the one in the
that
demo sounds
potion
more
sound
like the
effect
Kingdom
is
Hearts
not
potion, but this one actually sounds different. I don't know why this has been changed.
Yeah, of course, guys. That potion sound effect is incredibly crucial. Without it, the whole game
Absolutely.
will fall apart.
Anyway, time for the presentation, since the American cast is completely different from the usual suspects.
Hey,
type
it's
127.
Cloud, and he doesn't look sick this time, unlike in the trailers.
Cloud is voiced by Cody Christians. Apparently, the thing he's most famous for is the series Teen Wolf, but I have zero experience with it, so I don't know how good or bad it may be. But he was in other stuff like Pretty Little Liars and All American. He's a TV actor. More than this is actually his first major voice acting role, so interesting enough. Barrett is much more experienced.
I like
voiced
that.
by-
I like that. They kept in the little thing where the first time you level up, you go up to level 7.
From the
like in
first fight,
original.
yeah. But Barrett is much more, experienced voice actor. Is John Ake Bentley. He's famous for doing, being tied to some as extra roles in a couple of movies, like Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, in the second
Interesting.
Independence Day, or Resident Evil Extinction. Okay,
Ooh.
let's check something more positive for resume. He was Nick Fury in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, so more recently. So there's that. He
Nice.
specialized for the role, but he has a pretty extensive career from the end of the 70s onward.
Right. Okay, one thing I have learned from the demo is that I have learned to, not just spam the sword at all enemies, because otherwise that will take forever. And instead, I'm going to try my best to use enemies' weaknesses against them, even if that means switching to a different character for a bit.
Are you gonna use also different magic other than fire?
Yeah, don't worry, I'll work on it. I mean, yeah, and there you are. There's the.
Whoa,
you get
that Chocobo chick has a bed head. Oh wait, no, that's Cloud's hairdo.
Yeah, that's a new summon that wasn't in.
As for the three members of Avalanche, Jessie is voiced by veteran Erika Lindbeck, who has like a shit ton of roles.
Those three, she was Futaba in.
Futaba Sakura in Persona 5.
Which,
then-
funny enough, the re-ish make of that game came out like a week and a half before this game did.
Yeah, there was minor fandom rivalry with
I'll
that.
admit, I'm kind of surprised they didn't have Erika Lindbeck do Air's voice, all things
Apparently,
considered.
Erika Lindbeck was also her first role was okay. Shiro, you probably know this one better. A character called Vess Vess in the 1995 Double Sailor Moon.
Huh.
Do you know that?
Vaguely.
Maybe
Okay.
maybe IMDb's just fucking with us or something, and it's like they're crediting for some reason, even if it's a recent dub, they credit it far back earlier.
Huh.
Whatever.
Timeline-wise.
As for the other two, Biggs, like Biggs Adventure in the demo, is voiced by Gideon Emery, which has experience with Final Fantasy, being, for example, Valfir in Final Fantasy XII. Interesting because Square normally tries to not recast actors in roles that are too attached. But I guess they wanted to play the cool effect, so that's fine. But for a more live action role, he was also in the Daredevil Netflix series.
Is he one of us now?
Also, wasn't Gideon Emery in Final
This,
Fantasy 14?
What was his
Yes,
name
he
again?
voiced Orangier in the for the first part when the dub was still the American version.
Yeah, but after I think after one of the expansions, they moved all voice acting to London.
This is
Yeah.
a one-time gig. When it's done.
As
we're
for
done.
Wedge, instead, is voiced by Matt Jones. Breaking Bad fans will be remembered immediately from him for his role as Badger in that series, but he's done other things here and there. Apparently, like other TV series, most of the cast, aside from actual recognizable voice actors, most of the cast is taken from TV series. Interestingly enough.
Or even the same.
Okay. Thanks, Barrett. Another thing that needs to be pointed out is that since I had the means to actually, you know, compare back to back,
He said the line.
Kiyomi Naina, yeah, is the fact that in order to give it more spice, the English proper translation of the game was slightly more altered than usual in order to reflect the localization of the original game and to give the characters attitudes that were more similar. So the phrases that they say, most of the time anyway, technically are the same, but we're saying them in a different thing. It's in a mathematical sort of way. It's like saying 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 makes 4, just as the same as 2 + 2 equals 4. You're saying the same thing, but in a different way.
And that's the thing from the
iconic
cover of the game. Or the
But it
flip
doesn't have Sephiroth's face looming over him.
Why did it, Jova? The
That's
original
how it
art
looked
had
like in the cover.
just the reactor to it against it.
I know, but in some covers they added Sephiroth's mug to it.
But the Italian translation actually instead follows the Japanese script. So I actually already had spotted most of the difference. So the differences are fine for the most part. I may have found 1 or 2 phrases that I think should have been kept like original, not necessarily for how they're constructed, but because I think the game actually omits 1 or 2 minor points here and there. It's a literal case of like 1 or 2 things lost in translations, but I think overall we still did a fine enough job.
Is the voice acting in Italian?
No. As per tradition, Square Enix normally doesn't do voice acting for the Italian versions of their game. Instead, all the good stuff happens only to the French and the German. But they make sure. Basically, when it comes to localization in the multi-5 sector, Dwibs, my country and Spain are literally the last wheels of the cart, as we say here. France and Germany always get the luxury treatment, but it makes sense because, you know, they're the ones that give more money, so...
Well, aside from Sony, what other games get Italian dubs consistently?
Consistently? Can't really say, because it's more a sporadic thing. Sometimes Capcom does, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes Ubisoft consistently does it, I will say that. Warner Bros. Does it, but that helps because it's a licensed set of licensed IPs. Maybe EA, I guess, yeah. But most of the Japanese companies like Sega, Square Enix, Capcom, and Namco Bandai are more sporadic. It happens. Sometimes it happens. Even in Square Enix, Murder Soul Suspect is completely voice acted in my country.
I should mention one thing.
Go on.
In this game, it turns out that Cloud has a somewhat of a fear / hatred of boxes.
Well, he did mention in the demo.
Ever since he saw his parents get put in a box and not come out, he's been scared of them ever since.
Actually, that doesn't quite work, but it's like I said. It's because a soldier who hid around in a box killed his father in the war.
And put said father in that box.
He hasn't been able to find that soldier yet, but he's asking Solid Snake, who we met in Smash Ultimate, for advice.
Yeah. So not only is he scared / angry of any box he comes across, and every time he slashes it, in the faint hope you'll find the remains of his parents inside. Unfortunately, all he can seem to find are potions and Mako shards and Phoenix
those are useful. And sometimes Moogle medals, those will be useful later. Now, as for our original run for it, I have a love-hate relationship after all these years. It suffers to, at least for my own opinion, keep in mind, I've been the one recording it, so at least I'm talking for myself. It suffers from early YouTube quote-unquote career syndrome, in a sense that the more years start passing, the more you start noticing the flaws. The humor could have been better, my editing skills were atrocious at the time, so I didn't know how to properly speed things up or edit things out, so there's a lot of pointless moments that could have been easily trimmed or been done better. The humor could have been refined better a bit too. I could have used different characters in different situations, blah blah blah.
It is
But
admittedly
overall,
a point.
hold on. But overall, I still don't have regrets in that kind of sense. I still am fine that we did that as one of our early things, just for the legacy that the game produces and all.
I can definitely understand what you mean. Like, well, I've actually been rewatching our original playthrough, and yeah, I mean, a lot of the humor gets better as it goes by. I will admit, some of the earlier humor did take a bit of time to edge out better. Now, by the end of it, loved it absolutely.
Gotta be honest though, I still have no idea what passed through my mind why I decided to cast Pedro as Barrett and not Killjoy. It seemed it should have been the most logical choice.
Also, I don't remember Cloud doing that.
No, you say for our original run, if you don't remember, Pedro, I did casted you in voicing Barrett's dialogue, while I guess the most logical choice would have been Jova, but I still think it worked out better in the end.
It worked out fine, and hey, I'll say...
I would argue it works. I would argue it would have to been either one of us voicing one of those, because otherwise Jova would be talking to himself a lot.
Well, I actually did consider myself for the role of Cloud for a while, especially and to be honest, I really like the characterization of Cloud in this remake, at least so far from I'm playing. It hits all the notes that I like, so there's a lot of empathy too.
No, I can get that out of the way right now. The characterization of all the characters is perfect.
I have to say, after years of seeing Cloud as a dopey downer or whatnot, it is so good to see Square Enix finally remember. Granted, Sakurai kind of beat them to it.
It did start in 2015 still with the arcade release of the CDNT, because one of the first things that the trailer shows immediately is Cloud with a triumphant smile of the heat of battle. That was like a heart melting moment, especially for me, because
think about
around the time, might as well talk. Might as well talk a bit about the history. It wasn't no secret that around the time I was extremely bitter towards Square Enix on what the countless things they were doing, the way they were treating their company. 2015 was really a turnaround year for them.
Oh yeah. Oh, trust me. You want to talk things about our original playthrough? Looking at our original playthrough of 7, you can tell from different parts of what era we were in. Like, you can tell at our start we're at that era where people were disgruntled with Square.
Don't worry, Father. I will find you.
I will find you and avenge you. But yeah, you can.
No, we're not there yet, Dwibs.
Actually, hold on. We're about actually to get to the extra scene that we mentioned.
Yeah, the scene was not in the demo that we're about to see. Yeah.
So be ready. We can't afford any more mistakes.
Right.
So, you know Tifa, right? It's not really my business, but are you guys close?
Well, like you said, there's not any...
Oh no, it's triggering PTSD!
Oh dear. Oh no, poorly textured doors, this really is a nightmare.
So yeah, actually Nibelheim looks pretty good, even though it's used mostly for the flashbacks.
In first person.
And it's, if you have memories from the original game, it's that fateful day, the one where Tifa will get injured, so you can kind of see where this goes.
Sorry, no time to explain, Ron.
Jesus, Barrett.
Barrett is quite the cactus in this game.
Yeah.
I guess the shades are also a reflection that he doesn't want to, make it look like he's staring people in the eyes.
Hi, Heidegger. Oh.
Okay, Heidegger. this is an actually interesting case, at least for me. Heidegger in this game is voiced by John DiMaggio.
I thought
And-
that was John DiMaggio.
But that's the
It
thing.
sounded
That's
like
the thing. You can tell that he's trying to do an impression because in a particular chapter, where he has to speak a lot, he kind of loses the impression a couple of times. He sounds more
Rest
like
assured.
the Marcus Phoenix traditional voice for his roles. So you can tell he's struggling a bit, but it's still him. For
Damn
the
Dwibs, Marcus really
Let himself go.
turned to the dark side in his older days, didn't he?
Well, I mean, to be fair, if you see all the here.
As for President Shinra, is voiced by James Horan, which has also an extensive career on his own. He has voiced stuff like Skullface in Metal Gear Solid 5.
Huh.
You gonna stand there
But,
and pretend you can't hit a flag
I'll check in the meantime if he has done anything. Oh, it was the voice of Scar in Kingdom Hearts 2. I didn't know that.
Huh.
Also, Pedro, you may know this one better. He's a character called Galen Agaris in Dark Chronicle. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'd worry less about the planet and more about the next 5 seconds. Save the screaming for later.
He's got a point.
Yeah, focus, man.
Barrett just
Get your
hates
head
to
in the
admit that
game.
Cloud's the one on point here.
Our lives are on the line now. You listening, Merc? One false move.
Bonk.
What? Yeah.
Okay.
What?
Here's a particular example of what I just said. The phrase that Jesse just said. For the original script, it's much more straightforward because she says, "That's a turret. You can't reach it. Barrett can." So instead, we just flavor it a bit in order to reflect also her personality.
Come on, Barrett, stay in the zone, man. You're the
Especially
you're
because
the,
we need you right
you're
now.
You're the cold train to this playthrough.
Pretty much. Once again, the Mr. T personality for Barrett is super evident in this game. Not just for the brushness
like
action,
in,
but also for how Barrett will eventually care for the people he loves.
So yeah, like before, I do have a bit of a hard time. I'm not saying the controls are bad for Barrett, but I have a hard time getting the gun to hit stuff properly because there's always something in the way.
Well, the game told you need to press R3 to lock on things.
Yeah. Also, each character, depending on what they are, has a different function for the triangle button. Like in Barrett's case, he can basically use a powerful shotgun shot with his gun arm.
But he needs
Cloud-
to recharge time and time again.
Cloud can have heavier sword swings at the cost of not being able to dodge without turning his strong mode off. The rest we'll get to later.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Going back to talking about
Alright.
Personally, Theo, I've over the years I've always checked out. That was also in the same year. My original 13 playthrough, and honestly, aside from those few kinks, I still think it really holds up, at least for me.
Oh, I think one of my favorite bouts was when I called a few
For
things.
the things we said,
There's very little things I would change, honestly.
No,
I would definitely keep Gavis at Tony.
I watched it.
I do believe you did seem to have a better experience than me from the get-go, though, so at least you have an advantage.
I watched a few parts. There were times where it was a bit hard to understand what you guys were saying.
Yeah, there were problems with
yeah.
Skype.
It was
and
Skype
so
back
sometimes we
then.
had someone dropping and stuff
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
I'm talking about stuff that we had available at the time.
I
At the
did-
time, was Discord even a thing in 2015? I don't
No, it wasn't actually.
So there you go. That was the best we had at the time.
I do wonder though, so for you guys' respective playthroughs, if given the chance, would you ever want to do a redo, sort of like what we did with Back in Time and Eternity? A more refined look at one
If,
with, better
If
audio
Dwibs
tech
joins
and
us,
whatnot.
Yes. If not, I don't see the.
I'm not really interested. All my boxes.
Yeah, I agree with Pedro on this one. As for the
I'm
original
sure you
7
could.
Jova, I normally would, but there's so much more stuff that we need to look forward into. So I think, ironically enough, this remake is fine, but ironically enough, it's a case where it's okay to not look at the past instead for the future. It feels super weird for me to say something like that. I know, but
to add what you were saying, too, I would argue 2014 when Wada resigned and Matsuda came in and restructured the company. And then, of course, they had that really good E3 in 2015 where they announced Nier Automata, and they really showed a genuine sign that that Matsuda was generally trying to get the company shit together. And even and their E3s have been pretty damn good for the most part. The 2019 one in particular was their best.
I'm so enraged by my failure to get through the gate. I will slash these boxes.
I will say instead, but the 2000. If you don't remember, 2018 one was mediocre. But they didn't have much to show, and one of the new things they did show was the Quiet Man. So
that's why I said for the most part.
Remember when we originally thought
last year was actually instead really great.
Remember when we originally thought the Quiet Man was going to be the Avengers game at first?
Yeah. All right. Anyway, let's okay. I'm gonna face the sweeper, but first of all, I'm gonna run off and find.
Well, you did the same thing in the demo, Dwibs.
It's right there. Of course, I'm gonna.
For example, I'm like, keep in mind, Square is still not a perfect company, just like literally anyone else. So don't get the wrong idea that just because we became better, we became super perfect. They're not exempt from fucking up things from time to time. But compared to 5-6 years ago, this is like a godsend. To give an extremely recent example, actually something that may come out later, actually. From E3, last year's E3, Square decided to finally localize a game that we didn't back in the day, and people thought it would just be to resort to a fan translation, Seiken Densetsu 3, aka what is now called Trials of Mana. But Square decided to do something more with it, not just re-release the original with its compilation on the Switch, at least so far, with a proper English translation, which, keep in mind, as a
there you are, guys. See, I am
good. Yeah, well, you'll need it, Dwibs. The game will become much more difficult later on, even in easy mode.
You're a Pokemon fan. Use your type matchup experience.
Especially keep using the analyze materia that you will get later on. It's very useful on that. But Square did not just re-release the game with a proper translation. They actually developed a full-on remake, and this time one that seems to be pleasing more people compared to the one that they did of Secret of Mana back in the day. And they didn't just decide to do a quiet release on everything. No, they're heavily marketing this film, and it's a supposed AAA release, and I'm actually super happy for that.
Yeah, your bloody boxes. Why do people leave? Why do people leave piles of?
And that's just a recent example. There will be countless things to say, like the localization of the Romancing Saga games that were never localized back in the day. You know, again, it's still not exempt from flaws, but I do believe it is one case where appreciating the good stuff probably should have a better priority. Don't be shy, of course, in noticing potential bad things, but keep also the good stuff in mind.
Square are one of those companies,
otherwise you'll end up like those bloody YouTube channels that were pointing out negative stuff as all you do.
Anyway, Square are in a very...
I'm not necessarily referring to that, Dwibs. It's a more delicate and complicated thing, so I will only mention in a very lighter way, because I don't want also to turn this into any argument. I want to just mention it briefly. Supposedly, for some reason now, people can't seem to have having simple discussion, even including the same in conversation Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy 15, because for some reason, most of, keep in mind, not generalizing, but most of their respective fan base will then start tearing each other's throat and generate the arguments into flame wars, meaning that whatever discussion people wanted to have gets lost. And I sadly see it as a very recurring thing altogether, in a sense that no one is enjoying anything, you know, and they're just passing by and saying, "You're wrong, am I right? I can't hear you."
All right. One thing gaming-wise,
again,
one thing gameplay.
Go on, Dwibs.
All right. One thing gameplay-wise, I should point out that I don't think I addressed in the demo playthrough was that you don't have to, if you're fighting an enemy that's way above, you don't have to manually jump. You can just press the attack button and automatically leap up into the air and hang 10 with the enemy.
Keep in mind, this is not an acrobatic. This is not Dissidia, so Cloud doesn't, or Kingdom Hearts, Cloud, the jumps are automatic, and they're just there to use for the attack animation, and still Cloud and the other melee characters cannot reach physically all targets that are up above.
Although sometimes, for the most part, what I normally do for airborne enemies is just cast magic at them and hope it will stagger them to the point where they'll fall down and I can reach them easier.
Surprised nobody's pointed out one of the best things about this remake is that random encounters are now officially a thing of the past.
Well, they haven't been in Final Fantasy since 12.
Besides, you can't really do random encounters in a game like this.
Well, technically you could. It's a remake of 7.
You'd be surprised, Dwibs. There are
games like Rogue Galaxy do manage to pull these out without having to pull you away from the map.
To me, you're the man Tifa says you are. That you're one of us.
It does make a grinding a bit, long as a process, but I understand why we decided to do that. Whatever, Dad.
Another thing, it doesn't even fit the design, because the way Naoki Yamaguchi designed this is that this game is paced like Chrono Trigger, in the sense that as long as you're fighting the battles,
boy,
as long as you're fighting the battles that you find naturally, you will never need to stop and grind for a while, because the game paces itself so that you'll always have enough XP and enough levels so that you're always on par with your opponents.
What about the timer?
Alright, Dwibs, are you still gonna go for 30 minutes, or will be brave enough?
Nah, I'm gonna go 30. I mean, hang on, you're in a highly secured reactor building. Why? And you're going to fight this guy coming up a little bit. So why would you want to risk having a lower target hit when you don't know if you're going to get out in 20? At least in 30, you have a bit more leeway.
Because with the lower time limit, you also
for terrorist organizations, the lives are not the highest priority. Succeeding the mission is.
Not only that, but with the lower time.
To use you again, and what if you run out of?
Also, Dwibs, I'm feeling as if this conversation is upside down for us.
True that. Let me put it like this: obviously, with a lower time limit, you give the actual opponents less time that they could use to potentially, deactivate the bomb as well. So it also gives you an advantage.
In this game, I know that they don't do that, so I'm perfectly fine with doing 30 minutes.
Well, this was going on, and I'd like to say something. Whereas, basically, everybody, I've had this game since April 8th, about 2 days before. Actually, was it 2 days or 3 days? I forgot.
2 days. The official release date was April 10th.
No, but remember, Teo, copies were sent before, so I actually got it like 2 or 3 days before. I actually forgot if it was 2 or 3 days, to be honest now. But anyway, the point is, I got it a couple days before, so I actually have more experience in the game than everybody else here. I've actually finished it already, and I'm going through New Game Plus stuff and trophies. I would like to say something about this battle system. There have been many JRPGs over the course of the history of the genre that have tried to create battle systems that try to achieve a good balance between turn-based elements and action-based elements. Some succeeded, others failed. However, I would like to say this right now, as someone has completed. This game by far has the best attempt. This game, to me, is a masterclass on how to blend those two styles. Like, it manages to incorporate all the benefits of both, thanks to the way it's designed. And as a result, the gameplay, the battles never get tiring, they never get repetitive, because you're always doing something different depending on each situation. I'm just gonna say it. As far as if it were up to me, from this point on, this should be the modern Final Fantasy battle system for all games, as far as I'm concerned.
There we are.
It pleases everybody.
They are limit break itself.
Yes.
Yeah, limit break. Yeah,
each character gets only one limit break for this first part, but some are more iconic.
Well, I don't think
I don't think I showed it off in the demo, but yeah, limit breaks do make a return. Well, I mean, it's based off Final Fantasy VII, so yeah. Although limit breaks were also in Final Fantasy XIV.
Cloud has Cloud Slash and a new one called Ascension.
But yeah, I forgot if it was like.
I guess you get them later in the game.
Well, if you gone to Bunker's Coliseum, because that's where you went.
I still haven't gone that much into it.
Anyway, about limit breaks, what I was trying to say. I'm not sure if this is how it works in the original, but here you can get your limit break when you're taking damage from enemies, and also doing your best to stagger them as much as you can.
Yes, it happened. In the original, it was as basic as getting hit and dealing damage to the enemy. The two debuffs that you could get, either Fury or Sadness, basically is either sped up or sped down the capacity on how much you fill in the gauge. There you go.
The M field.
Keep in mind, limit breaks there was a prototype of sorts for a limit break already in Final Fantasy VI, but it was more rough around the edges. 7 was the one that sort of reinvented the proper.
Yeah, like I'm not even kidding. If it was up to me, if I was Shinya Hashimoto, I would tell the guys, let's keep this battle system for the near future, because I don't think we're gonna get anything better than this, at least not for the time being.
For the actual, sorry, no.
Because there's a lot of people who prefer turn-based, a lot of people who prefer action-based.
Well,
so,
there's bravely default for
balance I've found. What I mean is that this is one that I think, like, this is the best compromise that I've ever seen.
What's it doing now?
An auto repair unit. Damn it. We gotta take it out quick or we're screwed.
Oh, I am way ahead of you, Merc.
Square are in an interesting transitional mode of phase here and there. They're not entirely back to their full glory, but man, oh man, have they been getting a lot of goodwill to their name. Like,
I'd argue they've been back up. They've been. I think it started with the relaunch of 14.
Definitely started with the relaunch of 14.
That's definitely the best Veteran Cap, because Final Fantasy 14 is regarded as the best MMORPG on the market right now.
And for anyone who knows how that game...
I like what Bethesda would like to tell you. No, I'm sorry, Bethesda, you're wrong. Elder Scrolls Online is not the most played MMO right now.
Yeah. So, yeah, here's the thing. For anyone who knows how 14 started out, you will know that the current 14 is nothing short of a miracle. Well, that and a lot of hard labor.
It came out during the Dark Age. The overall gist of it is over 2009 and between 2014. That was the.
Oh, Pedro. I've seen Clement's. Hold on, let me finish. I've seen Clement Remembers Final Fantasy 13. Holy cow! There was a lot of really bad and stupid stuff happening, like around the time 13 came out, like even preceding it.
If you want a short and comedic history on how the Final Fantasy 14 1.0 version went through, check True Blade Seeker's video, but it's on the same style of Just a Pancake. Final Fantasy 14 1.0 in a nutshell. It's pretty much a good explanation of what happens.
From what I've well, the biggest problems with OG 14 was that it put too much emphasis on the graphics and not much on.
And the problem is that similar to the Luminous engine, Square Enix wanted to use their Crystal Tool engine for something that it wasn't supposed to be used, and it backfired spectacularly.
Yeah. Fortunately, Nomura decided to start using Unreal Engine 4 for his projects, and hopefully the rest of the developers at Square will follow suit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen before Square's attempts at making their own engines. While they haven't exactly been terrible per se, they don't really work for the game.
The problem is it boils down to this. The Crystal Tool's problem is that it was a game made specifically for linear ass hallway like games, which is not the kind of thing Final Fantasy is. If they made it for shooters and shit like that, they would have done it. It's just that they also tried to apply it to every game they were making, including the JRPG.
Which is kind of ironic, because when you get down to it, the VII Remake, I'd say, actually perfects what 13 was trying to do.
Well, it's using the best engine in
It's
the
on
market right now.
It's
so
on
it allows them to do
the Unreal Engine?
Yeah, well, Engine 4, yes.
Nice.
mentioned
Some
Jova.
Laura's go-to engine.
Go
right
on, Tio.
Mentioned of commentary Jova, but it's on a better hardware and with a better engine to boot. It basically
Well, yeah.
did what 13 was supposed to
Well,
do.
it's not
Because
just-
contrary to what other people will have you believe, open world does not actually automatically guaranteed like a good perfect game that runs
I mean,
smoothly.
it helps in it. I mean, it helps that the PS4 isn't a nightmare to program.
Now,
Well, it's not just power that they do better, but also the way that it's designed a lot better.
yeah,
Like,
keep in mind that not everything needs to be a corridor because 13 problem was that some of these levels were literally a straight line with nothing else.
here, for as linear as this remake is, it does it in a very masterful way.
It does it to the Final Fantasy X way. It gives twists and turns at every possible moment.
Not just that, like if you go back to Midgar in the original game, the Midgar arc is linear in itself anyway. So I don't think anyone ever expected this to be open in any way. The original wasn't. Why should?
Well, Midgar had its fair share of exploration here and there still, which thankfully this game still retains. In the important bits, though. I think the best way to put it is like, well, whereas Final Fantasy XIII felt like a culmination of everything wrong with Final Fantasy, this game feels like the exact opposite. This is like a culmination and takes the best of all Final Fantasies. Like, it takes the progression ideals that Final Fantasy X introduced. It introduces the idea of switching enemy players on the fly, which versus 13, the game that never came out to be, was
the learning abilities from weapons from Final Fantasy 9.
It has the nice players following you around that Final Fantasy.
Hell, it even
8
has
and
the
9.
fucking Crystarium from 13, just not in the way you think.
Fortunately, the weapon Crystariums are just standard skill trees that are perfectly straightforward and easy to use, and they're not at all like the Crystarium.
I know. There's just something funny seeing the exact same interface they use for something much better.
Yeah. Also, from what I understand, typically Square don't release a Final Fantasy game for a system until it's like 2 or 3 years in. Like, say, the PlayStation came out in Japan in 1994. There wasn't, 7 didn't come out till 1997 and so on.
Yes,
Well,
and
actually, no. The Final Fantasy X was 2001. That was only a year into the PS4.
yes and no. Please keep in mind the 13 was supposed to be a sort of launch title. Well, not launch title, but to be done in the early years of the PS3, and was supposed to be an exclusive. But as time went on, we kept having problems, having to rework the battle system multiple times.
Also,
ended up being in multi-plat.
Also, Cloud, you're on the clock here. Now's not really the time to be taking out your anger on me.
Especially because these new particular enemies are very nasty because they can dodge a lot of your attacks.
Well, maybe that's why he set it to 30 minutes, so you could have an extra time to whack more boxes.
Yeah.
Not to mention this, there's literally a whack-a-box mini-game. So Cloud has the excuse to destroy all the boxes that he could ever want. So.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Pedro! That explains it. That explains why Cloud was at the Olympus Coliseum. He was doing the heroic training that Phil set up with the boxes.
Also,
Actually, they were barrels.
Well, boxes, barrels, you still break them.
It's well, I mean, it's either that, or the dead parents I mentioned earlier, or Cloud really doesn't like Metal Gear Solid, and so he's taking it out on the box.
There we go.
Remember, dudes, I already established. He asked for Solid Snake for advice on who this mysterious soldier who was hiding in a cardboard box might be that killed his dad.
Now, you also notice gameplay-wise when after you're done every battle, the control shifts back to, in this case, Cloud, since he's the party leader. But the game will have you experiment with different things by switching who the leadership goes to. So you're not stuck the entire time.
Not just that, like in the original game, even if you put another party member at the top spot, Cloud will still be the one you control in the field anyway, so technically this is in line with the original anyway. However, you can go to battle settings and switch who you control during battles anyway.
So to make Avalanche come off as, make Avalanche look as bad as possible, They're firing everything.
Shinra is so stupidly evil. They want to sabotage their own power.
Well, to be fair, Tio,
the
this is the
firing-
same company that did the whole
Anyway,
drop a roof on
well,
Sector 7, which wasted
what-
much more money than they needed to.
Plate, more like
I
it,
hadn't,
sure.
I hadn't finished yet. Basically, to make them look bad, they just basically destroyed the reactor to make it look like, oh, that's pesky Avalanche. They don't care about civilian life. They just want to blow stuff up.
And in his office, Reeves keeps crying in a corner while hugging his Kate Sipka toy.
Reeves.
What a baby.
I'm not gonna ask.
He's a baby.
Sure. You were there during our original playthrough. You know what
Well,
that's
she may have
about.
forgot things.
It's been 5 years.
But yeah, I'll admit, I do treasure our old playthrough of 7. And, you know, oh god, you know what this means, Tio. Now we're gonna get requests from our fans asking us to remake our original 7 playthrough.
I'm literally playing the remake.
This counts. This counts.
Yeah, this counts. But like I did mention, the idea of entertainment just to show potential different outcomes. But we have better things to do right now,
That's
and not just for this remake.
that said, though, folks, Cloud is without a doubt one of my favorite roles I've ever portrayed on the channel.
Remind, just like he said, that too was accidental.
So, oh my god, so you're saying that me being Cloud was as accidental as Dwibs being Leighton?
I guess.
Well, I guess to be fair, you know, you had a bout of judgment and it worked out pretty well, I'd say. And hey, you were pretty good.
Yes, Java, let's call that. Anyway, from now on, whatever you will see will be new stuff. So enjoy.
Like this loading screen.
So basically, folks, as a little homage to our original playthrough, I will be portraying Cloud's inner thoughts and what he has to say when he's not speaking.
I'll just be
Chapter 2, Fateful Findings. Encounters.
I'll just be making like general observations of the current situation they're in.
Will you still be Youthy's in a monologue, Dwibs?
Well, when
She's not in this game.
So,
whenever
Dwi-
you
know.
appears.
A better question, Dwibs, are you still going to be heir of Sinner Monologue?
Yeah, I suppose. Why not?
Yeah, not to spoil too much around here, Arif is very interesting in this remake, just saying.
So I've heard.
Let's get going.
And I guess Shirai can be Tifa's inner monologue.
Sure.
Daddy.
Yeah, we can't voice the character, we'll just be their inner thoughts.
So will I just be yelling, or...
Oh, Shiroi, Tifa has an interesting role in this game.
Yeah. Well, I don't know yet.
That said, Pedro, do you still want to be Barrett's inner thoughts, I guess?
Oh.
Remember, Jova, me and him are not that much into RPing.
Yeah, well,
Guess I'll take
Don't-
it up then.
don't worry, we'll entertain you.
Well, I actually had a... well, to continue what I was talking to Liz, yeah, that's the Crystal Tools engine, but the Luminous engine Lips, that's basically the real Edgong engine 2.0, in the sense that it was actually made by the same guy who made the 1.0
And it had the
Edgong
exact
engine.
same problems.
And it had the exact same problems as Edgong engine 1.0.
So maybe he's just not good at making engines then.
Yeah,
Well,
that's the
again.
thing,
The
I get
engines
the
are
feeling now
technically...
he's just... Apparently he stopped with that, since Square's apparently done with the Luminous engine at this point. It seems like now he's just going to be a technical engineer in general.
Please,
Okay.
you missed a treasure chest. Come on.
Yeah, there'll be plenty of them.
0 to 10, rank cancel, ruin forever.
Okay, let me put it like
Plenty
this.
of other treasure chests to find.
Let me put it like this. Square can make a good engine. The problem is how they prioritize stuff with their engines.
She's good to
I don't know, Jova. Like, honestly, as far in the PS3 era, they made a Crystal Tools engine which sucked. In the PS4 era, at least up until 2014 or 15, which is when they announced that both this game and Kingdom Hearts 3 would be using the Unreal Engine 4. I forgot what year they announced that. Up until that point, I mean, I'm not counting stuff pre-PS3 era because that was back when games were a lot easier to make compared to nowadays.
I'm talking more so about the fact that they are technically good engines. The problem is what they're actually used for. Like, they would be great movie engines, but as far as game engines go, yeah.
Sure,
Anyway,
I guess.
anyway, we are now officially done with stuff that we've already seen in the demo. So join us next time when we try and find our way back to the slums.
I just want to
See
point
you.
out one last thing,
Also-
though. It's funny, Tio. You and Pedro aren't the ones into role-playing, yet it was Pedro who came up with the idea for our role-playing in the first place.
Well, that's because the first game, the original game, didn't have voice acting. For a game like this, there's no point, I would argue.
It's
Alright.
so fun.
See you for
It's
part
still
2.
fun, but yeah.
See ya.
See ya.
See ya.
Yeah.